Hey guys, it's Luca from EDM Prod, and today we're going to be talking all about how we can start using our transitions more effectively in our tracks. So transitions are one of those things that are sometimes misunderstood or even underutilized by more so intermediate level producers. So if you are an intermediate level producer, focusing on transitions can be a great way to reach that next step in your productions. Just quickly, if you're looking for some free content, we have a whole suite of stuff on the EDM Prod website, so I'll leave a link below for that as well. Transitions have an important role in a few key sections of our tracks. Perhaps one of the more obvious uses is signifying that the track is actually changing, which makes it easier to move into that breakdown or that drop. They have an important role in maintaining interest as well. That is, dynamics and flow within our track, that forward momentum that we want as a producer. And they actually play an important role in developing your sound as a producer as well. There's a lot of stylistic quality about transitions. A big feature of your sound as a producer actually comes down to how you transition. So let's get on to some main points and discuss some examples. So the first point I wanted to cover is smoothly transitioning energy. So this is a track that I made a while ago. And let's have a listen to this little build and the first drop and how this transitions and how we can actually make an adjustment to make it more smooth with its energy flow. So let's have a listen. So you'll notice that in this section, we've actually built up quite a lot of energy where I'm building a lot with the ambience and the pads. It's quite wide, and there's a auto filter coming up on the bass, and there's also some filtering and stuff coming up on the drums, and the bass is finally in and it's layered here. And it's stripped back here as well. So there's a lot of contrast between these sections, which is creating a lot of tension. But there is something missing. As you move from this section into this one, we'll find that it just feels a little bit empty here. It's because we haven't adequately used a transition to smooth the energy flow from one side to the other. So let's have one more listen and then we'll talk about how we can fix this. So when this focus point hits this drop, then there is actually nothing that carries it over here, and I think this is what it's missing here. So this crash build-up occurs, but there's actually nothing that happens. There's no impact here. So one way of resolving this is to get some sort of impact. And if I look at this one, this is like a long echoing hit. If I paste that there, this is what it needs to transition that energy flow over to this section. And let's have one more listen and then explain why it works. So now we have the build up, but we also have the adequate amount of release, the release of the tension that we've built. So the point that I'm trying to get across here is we can build tension, but if there's no adequate release of that tension, then it doesn't really make sense to us as a listener, and it just feels a little bit out of context and dry. So using things like one-shots, like cymbal hits or effects or any way that you would like, and any way that suits your track, on top of drops to actually signify that the energy is tapering off, or we've built the energy and then it's being released, is a really important point for smoothing the energy and the dynamics into the next section as we transition. So the next point I wanted to cover is using space to transition. This is a really interesting method of transitions, and it's something that really characterized my style, at least within this track, the style of this track. I use space a lot to build tension and to transition. So a good arrangement technique is to use contrast to create this feeling of an energetic payoff, right? And a really good way of creating contrast is to use space. And by space, I mean width, stereo spectrum, depth. We're talking about delays and reverbs and time-based effects. So let's look at how I've used space in this particular same transition as before, the same little build-up. So I've actually added a whole bunch of these chops, and they have some effects on them with some reverbs and some processing, but most of it comes from this ambience group here. So let's have a little look at some of the things that I've used. I've actually got 3 pads in here. This one isn't being used, and they're just creating a really big sense of space, which then without any tail, I just automate these to turn off at right as this kick drum comes back in and the bass line comes back in. So I'm creating a big sense of contrast by doing that. So that difference in the sense of space and that contrast between the build and the drop in this section has actually made this transition shine. So using space and contrasting that space is a really good way, an interesting way to transition. In fact, if you look at this ambience group, you can almost tell exactly how my arrangement is working because I'm using these ambient pads to progress to different sections. So this section is progressing, as you can see at the top, and then this is sort of like where it's peaking. And I've built up that with the space here, and then I've taken it away and added some more things in with the drums. And then same for this section. This is where it becomes like sort of a minimal section, and then I'm actually building here by taking the pads away, and then again I'm peaking without the pads. And that's kind of how this track was working, the vibe of this track and how it flows. So remembering to use space adequately in your transitions can really help them shine. So for our final point, and it's a little bit more of an open, broad point, but it's really, really important to take into account the context of our track when we're making transitions. So have a think about your track. What style of track is it? Is it driving or is it chill? Is it upbeat or is it more mellow? Is it gritty? Where do you think that this track will lend itself to be played? For this track in particular that I've just pulled up now, I've just changed over a different one, and it's a really driving track. And I think that it's quite gritty and pumping. It has a lot of energy to it. So we have to make the transitions suit the vibe of the track as well. So have a quick listen to this track, and then we'll talk about the transition. So as you can hear, the tracker has a lot of energy and it's pumping. So it's quite straight and it doesn't have swing to it. It sounds quite robotic and computer generated, which is lo and behold what it is. But I'm just thinking about what the vibe of the track is so we can start to make our transitions to suit this vibe as well. So I'm just going to quickly talk about this one transition that I've already pre-made here. This is definitely my favorite transition of this track, and I'll show you why it works, but let's have a listen. So I'm transitioning into this section where I'm adding some more elements, some more quicker hats in the background, and I'm starting to add some more melodic things as well, with some more effects going on. So why this transition really works for me is because I was trying to design it specifically for the image, and I was thinking about the image being that robotic, almost computer generated feel. And I wanted this transition to be like a glitch in the computer, a glitch in that robotic song. And this is what it turned out to be. So I've done a double kick and then stopped everything on a clap. And I've added a few more claps and then added these kicks in sort of these shuffly, interesting positions to make it feel and adjust it to feel like that computer glitch that we were talking about. So again, just one more listen and then we're on our way. So I guess this is quite a conceptual way to do a transition. There, you don't have to pre-plan and pre-think about your transitions beforehand. A lot of the time it comes naturally from producing the song, but just trying to use this as an example to envision how a transition will best suit your track and how you can use your transitions to actually emphasize the qualities of your track. So that's it. I hope you've learned something on how you can leverage your transitions a little bit more effectively in your tracks. And if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend, do all that good stuff. So until next time, see you then.